Yeah, fun story. I don't know why my camera has me all red, but fun story is about 15 minutes before the podcast began, I got a text from my energy service provider saying, or my internet service provider rather, saying, "Hey, working on things, you might go down." And sure enough, we were down right before we started. So
yeah, on the dot.
yeah. Anyway.
Well, I think it's important to know for all of the new listeners then is that this podcast might be cut short based on the internet there. And if it is, the real thing that we want to do today is one, to provide clarity around the step 2 of the blueprint, but then also point you to the blueprint so that you can go and see step 1 and 3 and 4 and stuff as well, because it all creates the cohesive whole. So worst case scenario, this is going to be a really short podcast. But the point is to get you over to that blueprint anyways. And to get to that, it's really simple. It's just toolkit.tradeca.co. You can go there at any point and go through all 4 of those of the steps to mark it out. Now, what are they, right? That's what we're going to get into now with Zach as he starts to introduce step 2 through everything. So let me get that out in case this does go short.
Good call. Yeah, I don't know why I'm red today, but I guess I'm a lobster. So anyway,
you look a little bit like the girl off of Willy Wonka when she eats the gum.
It was delicious. It was delicious. All right, let me get into it here. Well, welcome to the TraDeca X podcast. I am Zach Shanky, and I have with me one of the co-founders as well, Travis Hunter Hennigan. We like to hop on and chat about what our company is doing in terms of helping people learn how to trade and create an income, a real, legitimate, consistent, reliable, secure income through trading. And so today, what we want to talk about, we do have an awesome thing that Travis was just talking about called the Trading Blueprint. This is a training that we have put together for people that don't know much about us, our systems, our processes, the way we think about trading. It is very different than the industry as a whole. And this is something that we can give to you as a gift. And so if you haven't gone through it yet, you can. And like Travis said, you just go to toolkit.tradeca.co, and you can get access to that. But here's what we want to talk about today. We want to talk about if internet permitting and time permitting, we can. We're going to talk about 10 pips per day. Okay. How 10 pips per day can actually generate a 6-figure income in just 5 hours a week. So an hour a day. We're going to talk about the gate system, which is a data-driven system. It skips the guesswork of scaling. And we're going to talk about the pro payout plan, which is a pay yourself first approach for long-term stability. So that's the plan.
No, we can go to the calculators first, so we can start showing what the math looks like behind the 10 pips per day. Before we do, though, I think it's really important for especially the newer listeners who may not know what a pip is. I think the simplest way I've ever come up with to explain it is it's just the measurement of the markets, just like we measure miles or nautical miles, depending on if you're on land or the ocean. It's just a way in which you measure, right? And so pips for us is a unit of measurement. And depending on how many pips there are, we have a dollar amount associated with them, right? And that's where things get really fun. That's where we're going into the math with this, right? And it's really, really simple, right? So we focus the majority of, TraDeca, it's TraDeca, right? So trade 10. We focus the majority of our conversations on the idea of a foundation of just 10 pips is where life-changing results come from. Anything more than that is where it gets really beautiful, right? So that's kind of as an introduction to the pips. A lot of you already do know what pips are, and you're like, well, how the heck do I get to the consistency behind the 10 pips too, right? And that's kind of what we cover all over in the blueprint. So for right now, though, what does that 10 pip play look like? If I get 10 of those every single day, I don't increase my knowledge base. I don't change my strategy or have 15 more strategies. I do the same 10 pips over and over and over. What does that look like?
Love that. So here's a calculator to tell you that. So we have, if you're trading at $5 a pip, let's say, 10 pips a day is going to give you 250 a week, $1,000 a month, an extra 13,000 a year. Now, for most of our folks, they're going through something called a funded account, which is where they trade with other people's money, not their own money. It's awesome. It's actually one of the best ways to replace job income. And they actually start out at $20 a pip. So starting at $20 a pip, if you're just doing 10 pips a day, you're looking at 1,000 a week, 4,000 monthly, 52,000 a year. The nice thing about this, though, is that we have a gate system, which we're going to cover in more depth and detail here in a minute. But gate 1 on a funded account is $20 a pip. That's like level 1. It's like the lower level. Gate 2, you actually bump it up to 40. So within a month, couple months, these numbers double. And now all of a sudden you're making a 6-figure income, $104,000 a year, by 10 pips a day. And so this is why it's so powerful. So sometimes the reason we want to bring this up is because sometimes I see traders and we it's like a double-edged sword. We have some traders in our community that are just so freaking good and they're walking away with 100 pips a day. And they say it, we're on a trading session together and they're like, I got 50 pips, I got 70 pips, I got 90 pips today, and they're celebrating as they should, because those are good, awesome numbers. And then you get the one person that's like, I only got 15. And it's like, only 15 is awesome, and so that's why we always bring it back to 10 pips a day. Eventually, as you get better and better at the skill set, sure, 10 pips is going to seem like nothing. But at the end of the day, if what you're looking to do is replace an income, focusing on the consistency is far more important than getting those massive home run hits. Right.
Absolutely. It's just like, weight loss, for example, the consistency behind doing the small things over and over is what's going to produce the result. It's not about going to the gym and working out for 10 hours at a time once a month, right? Like, it's about going consistently through the week and, obviously including a good diet and stuff too. There's multiple things to consider. But over here with trading, 10 pips is monumental if you can do it consistently over and over and over again, right? And I think, to help some people who knows what it feels like to be in the markets and see something and maybe get a little bit greedy and change the way in which they trade, instead of trying to get that 10 pips that was clearly there. They're like, oh my gosh, I see 20 pips. They do it, bam, the market goes the wrong way. There's something to note here. This is a competition between yourself and your greed, right? Yeah. Like you're not competing with the guy that got 100 pips. Right. Or the gal that got the, more or less that, right? You're competing only against yourself and the idea of more, the greed that can break in, seep in through those moments, right? So it really is a simple process to get to that 10 pips, as long as you don't get in your own way, right? Like, just allow those 10, those 15 pips to be that foundation. And on our event last week, Zach, you talked about the idea of having these multiple accounts and such. And to kind of further emphasize that, there can be one account that is strictly, this is my 10 pip account, right? But then I'm also, after I'm done with that one, going over here, and then you can go and try and do the larger plays and stuff, right? Because at the end of the day, we have been taught to do that in our life, eat everything on your plate. So if you see, if we imagine the market as our plate, we see all of those, we want all of those. I think it's a natural feeling. So there is a matter of discipline, and then there's a matter of having multiple accounts where you can have the opportunity to exercise both the discipline and the adventure. I should say.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. That makes a lot of sense to me. It is just a fight between you and your greed. And now, to be clear, it's not greedy to want to provide more for your family, and that's not what we're saying. But when
No.
you're in the markets, when you're actually actively trading, the line between trading and gambling is pretty thin.
Mm-hmm.
And the way we refer to it is we talk about intentional trading, which means you're not reacting to the market. You're saying in your head, you're saying, hey, look, here's what I'm looking for. If this happens, then I'm going to go into the market. I'm going to take a trade. If it doesn't happen, I'm not. That's very intentional. Versus, oh, it hit a line, therefore I'm just going to push a button because there's a line there. So anyway, but that's, yeah, very good. Very good. I like that.
I think like what is the difference between trading, or so we can call it even just investing? What's the difference between investing and gambling? What is that fine line?
It's all about probability. So in gambling, it's luck, right? You got a 50-50 chance or worse a lot of times, right? If in trading, it's very different because there are ways that you can forecast. Now, forecasting doesn't mean predicting the future or guaranteeing a future outcome. It means there's a probable outcome. The market is saying, hey, everything wants to be a buy today. So if everything wants to be a buy, I'm not going to take a sell, right? A sell would be gambling. You're going against all the probabilities.
I feel like it's going to go the other direction.
Right. I feel
like it. I feel lucky.
Gut feeling. Or, and if even if you do hit buy, by the way, we do have processes for what to do then, because just because the market says it's going to go up doesn't mean it always will. And so when you hit buy, you always hit things and you take care of it to make sure you don't lose capital. So we have processes in that to mitigate the risk. So you're playing a very high probability game and mitigating risk at the same time. That's how you get consistent results.
I think so. Yeah. When you have a way to mitigate your risk, like you said, a plan, intentionality behind it and stuff, that's where investing comes in, because we always have the idea that we're going to put money in and take more out. Mm-hmm. That's really simple, right? You can do that in a gambling environment. You can do it in an investing environment. The idea behind the investment, though, is that you have an understanding, you have a plan, a strategy, you have a system, you have the high probability setup, right? Because think about it. Why did the casinos kick card counters out?
Right.
They're no longer gambling. There is a high probability that the casino is going to lose, and they know that because that person.
It shifted from luck to strategy. It's same concept. Yeah.
And that's where the 10 pips comes in, is have a really solid strategy to get your 10 pips and just kill it, win. We have a couple other calculators here. Can we show those before we move on to the gate system with the copy calls? Because this is really important for people. Especially if you're either brand new or you've been struggling for a while to place your own trades, so you can jump on to sessions with us and in real time hear the reasoning behind the setups. You can see the analysis in real time. Right? It's really important that we're going to do this, but then you can also place the trades at the same time, and it's not just a, monkey see, monkey do. There's going to be differences and nuances and stuff too that we have to walk you through. But the idea is that you'll be able to see somebody in real time place their trades. You can come along with the ride. And if you do, where are all of our numbers?
They're up here.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So far this year, we've traded over 11,000 pips in front of our members on our live calls, right? So that's the number we're going to base off of. I think, or is it the last week? Can you scroll down? This is kind of awkward.
It's from last week.
Okay, so last week we got a little. Oh, there they are. 1,500. Small screen. Sorry. And so last week that we got 1,500 pips. It's not reasonable for you to think that you'll get on every single call or you'll get 100% of what someone else gets ever. It's just not a reasonable expectation. And so I always like to set the bar really low. Like, what if you just got 10%, which means that 90% of the time you're either not there or not copying the trades correctly, whatever, like the 90% margin of error at just those 10% on the same, $20 lot size that we're talking about earlier. Last week could have been a $3,000 week. Cut it even lower. If you're brand new and just starting out, even 10% of that, or I guess you changed it. But
Whatever,
point being is we can
$10.
keep cutting the numbers lower, and they're still impactful.
Yeah.
You don't need tons and tons and tons of pips to be able to have something meaningful here, right? I think it's fair to say that most people are around like 40 or 50% when they're, especially when they're first starting out, to kind of copy verbatim, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I would say so. Probably. It kind of depends on, so we have a variety of different types of sessions. Like we have some from James that are much more advanced, where he kind of expects you kind of know what you're doing already when you get on, and he's there as a guide, versus a trading session with me where I'm expecting you to not really know what you're doing, and I'm meant to be a lot more clear about what I'm looking for and what you could be looking for, that kind of thing. But yeah,
So
I mean,
you're like the drill sergeant at boot camp, and James is like the general at war.
That's right. Yeah. I'm the one telling you to do the push-ups. But yeah, it's really, I would say 50%. I mean, on my calls, it ought to be almost 100%. They ought to be taking 100% of the trades I take. Because I'm very, very crazy clear about what I'm taking and when I'm getting out, when I'm getting in, and that kind of thing. So
Makes
I also
sense.
have a lot less people on mine versus James. So
That's all right. Well, the yearly calculator too, kind of zoom out a little bit. What would the next 12 months look like? Well, of course, we don't know the future, but we do know what we did last year in 2025, which was over 40,000 on all of our live calls with all of our coaches, not just one person, right? This is our every opportunity you have to jump into a session with us. And again, just taking 10% of that, it's 4,000 pips. Multiply that by any of these numbers, reasonably speaking, right?
Oh, and you get
just do the all year, the whole thing. Okay. Yeah. 80 grand.
80 grand at gate one.
Let's say that you really have a struggle bus experience and you only do 10% of that, still 8 grand. It's 8 grand more than what you got without doing anything. And what, an hour per day to do that?
Yeah.
So what does that math out to?
Boy, we're doing
52 weeks times 5 days a week. It's 260 hours. Let's see if that's even a good deal. It's $31 an hour. Pay base. Hey. So, that's, I'm just saying, this is one of the highest value skills that you can learn. If you're looking to have something that you can incorporate into your already existing schedule, you're busy with your job, your kids, the whole 9 yards, right? You'd have to be what did I say here? It's worth your hour.
Yeah.
It really is. So that's the idea behind the 10 pips, right? But we also wanted to talk about the gate system because yes, we can go from $5 to $10 or 20 or 30 or 40 or whatever. Did you look over this?
I did.
Okay.
We're gonna skip to certain parts.
Okay. So the idea then is like, when do I go from $5 to $6 to $10 or whatever that number is to increase, right? Because a lot of people would think it's when you feel ready. Well, when you feel like you've had good enough consistency, and we just don't operate that way. We don't really care if you feel ready. We want you to feel ready, but the more important is, what is more important is if you are ready. Does your data show that you actually are consistent enough to progress? And so this gate system is how we actually analyze that and make those decisions.
Yeah, and so there's actually two different gate systems. One is for people that are starting with their own funded account, which we usually recommend don't put anything more than $500 in. So that's what this represents. You would start with smaller numbers because that's a smaller amount versus a funded account. If you get someone else to give you capital to trade with, it's usually a much more sizable amount, usually about $50,000 for that. But let's just say, for simplicity's sake, this is the gate system you're using. So you would start on gate one with 50 cents a pip. Gate two is $1, $1.50, $2, $2.50, and then gate 6 happens to jump to 5. Okay, so it's not always a 50-cent increment. There's a whole strategy behind it. All right.
Yeah.
Now, how do you move from one gate to the next? First, it's important to see how the math works. Okay, because if you're starting on gate 1, 50 cents a pip, and you get 40 pips, you made $20, right? But if you're on $7 a pip, you made 45 pips. Now we're talking 315. Like it's a drastically different outcome. just doing basically the exact same thing that you're always doing. You're building this baseline skill set of consistency, and then we're just messing with the numbers a little bit based on data. That's what it is. And
that's where the idea is that as your account grows, your risk should decrease. What we mean by that is that the amount that you're putting up against your total account, right? So like when you're on $100 account, okay, 50 cents or $1 or $5 or $10, whatever number is going to mean more to that $100 than if you're on $1 million account. Now the same $10 is significantly reduced from that, right? And so as you're growing, there are numbers that we tweak to make things make sense, right? So just looking at a little bit different perspective that we used to talk about more as a percent gain. A lot of people, I think, that makes more sense than pips to them when they're first starting out. So if you have like a 2 or 3 or 4% gain in your account on something like, a small $5,000, $10,000 account or so, that's a really reasonable gain. But once you get to the point where you're looking at the 1 million to 10 million or whatever, like that 3 or 4% now is a drastically larger number that, because of our human capacity and existence and our emotions and stuff, becomes a lot less reasonable. But the math doesn't change. The math is still the math, right? So there's a human element to it that we take into account as we're growing through the gate system too. Does that make sense? Am I explaining that well?
Yeah, 100%. And one thing I really like this is an example of what it would look like with a funded account. Let's say you had $50,000 from, and we show people how to do this, by the way, where you work with a prop firm and they give you capital to trade with. So that way you're not trading or risking your own. And it starts with $20 a pip, but notice it says 50K on the bottom. I know it's kind of small. And then gate 2, it actually starts at when you get to 56,000. The reason that this is impactful, so you're staying at $20 a pip until you grow the account from $50,000 up to $56,000. The reason this is impactful is because you now double the result, right? $20 a pip to 40 a pip, but you're actually have less risk. Okay, let me explain why. So at $20 a pip at $50,000, they give you a $2,000 loss limit. So if you lose $2,000, they take their money back. Okay, so you don't want to do that, right? So that's 1%, $20. I know we're getting a little deep into the math here, but $20 out of the $2,000 you're allowed to lose, that's only 1% of your allotted risk that you're putting into per pip. Does that make sense? 1% versus $40, but you have now $6,000 buffer. So once you get past 52,000, they lock you in at 50K. You can lose as much as you want down to 50K, right? So $40 a pip with a $6,000 loss limit, okay, is actually 0.6%. It's about 0.5%. So it's less risky, right, than it was in gate 1, but you're making double the amount of money. That's how the gate system works. Even in the original plan, the more you go up the gates as your balance grows, the less risky it actually is. Like you're not pacing your risk with the account growth. The account growth is outpacing your risk.
And that's where a lot of people get it wrong. And it's not their fault. It makes sense intuitively to think that as I trade with higher amounts of money, it's inherently more risky. It's like, right. No. Again, there's variables to consider compared to how much your account size is, right? Other variables. I don't want to get too far into it. I want to make it as simple as possible right now. They would think that trading on $1 per pip is less risky than trading on $10 per pip. Okay, but what if it's the same 10 pips over and over, right? Like it's still, did I make my 10 pips or not? That's the evaluation to weigh, right? And the consistency behind being able to get them is what's going to get you to the point of having the higher outcome, right? Mm. So it's not just increasing risk. In fact, our goal is to decrease risk, and this is part of how we do it. I think much to the same way I use computers. Like I love using computers. I have no idea how the mechanics really work inside of them, right? The same way as the gate system is designed to be super simple for you. In fact, you don't have to do anything. You just upload your trades into our toolkit and then the gate system automatically adjusts and tells you exactly where to be, right? We've made it silly easy for you to utilize this. And so if you're a nerd like Zach and I am on many things, you want to know all the math, we can break it down even further than this for you. But the point is, this is part of the way in which we're showing people how to realistically and consistently scale into impactful numbers, because no one's changing their life 50 cents at a time. Okay. So how do we scale comfortably, but also reliably to a larger number?
Yeah, exactly. 100%. Now we are kind of short on time, but we do have also a payout plan using those gate systems to kind of show you and illustrate what it would actually look like.
I think we should leave it for them to go. We're really short on time right now. I think we should leave it for them to go to the blueprint and finish going through the steps. And that way you can just get access to the payout plan. And we go over it in the blueprint, I'm fairly certain.
Yeah.
So the idea, like we said earlier, that this podcast, we actually made it through. So congrats to your internet company. They did a good job. But we want you to go to toolkit.tradeca.co because we want to give you a bunch of really cool stuff. Not the least of which is the blueprint, which is going to walk you through these fundamental foundational concepts that have helped us and helped our members trade with consistency for years now. The blueprint's going to break down the ins and outs. Actually, I'll have the steps on the next page. But this is 90 minutes worth of wisdom and insights from the decades of trading and coaching that we've distilled down here. It's not a trading strategy for you to go start. It's the foundational pieces that everybody needs before they start the strategy session, right? So if you go to toolkit.tradeca.co, you can sign up absolutely for free. You will go through that content. Now, that being said, fair warning, we give you 5 days to go through it if you actually want to keep the access to the toolkit for free, the tools that we give you for free. And the reason why we do that is for your benefit. Just like you can look back in the past and say, oh man, I wish I would have invested into Google in 1999 or 2000 or whatever. I wish I would have done that. It's like, yeah, but the market didn't wait for you. The market does not reward procrastinators. It rewards people who put in an intelligent and intentional and risk mitigated opportunity investments decisions, right? Like that you need to do something. What I used to say all the time is the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, but the next best time is right now, right? And so when you get into the blueprint, we give you 5 days to go over 90 minutes of material. It's more than doable. Again, to kind of mimic the way that the market works. It doesn't wait for you. And
I would also go ahead and I'd also say that part of that is for your benefit. Otherwise, you're likely not going to do it. So there is some real psychological advantages to having a little bit of pressure put on. And again, it's not like it's heavy. We're talking 90 minutes in the course of 5 days. I mean, it's pretty simple. But it's kind of a way to prove as well that, we have accountability systems on the inside. This is part of what makes our traders trade well, is because we do keep an eye on things and we do talk to them if they have a loss. And they don't like that. It's part of accountability. So this is also for your benefit so that you do it, so that it's not another thing you sign up for and then you just ignore for the rest of your life. This is something serious. This could really, really change your life. And so it's there for your benefit to make sure you go through it. And get the benefits and the free tools that we give you too by going through.
I've already seen somebody be on like the very last one, but there's like minutes left, and are talking like, hey, it's like go watch it. Like it's there for you, and but at the end of the day, we want it to benefit you. And there's some material there. Can you pull up that last slide? Actually, I want to show people what this looks like. So there's lots of good nuggets and wisdom and truth and everything here. Today we went over step 2, which is basically the 10 pip methodology, right? There's a lot more in it as far as the actual TraDeca method, not just the concepts and the math for you to go look at. And then there's also step 1 and 3 and 4 for you to get the 3 legs of success, which we did on a podcast 2 weeks ago, right? And then we have the complete system that removes emotions and identifies your blind spots, and the secret weapon, which will help you out. Now we're going to go over step 3 in another 2 weeks, and step 4 in 2 weeks from then. And so you can spend the next, 2 months going through these one at a time with us on the podcast, or you can go over to the toolkit.tradeca.co right now and plow right through it and get the benefit there. And it's structured. We don't have to have the awkward moments of maybe the internet's going to go out. So
yeah,
we do it pretty cleanly. Anything else to add there, Zach?
No, it's perfect.
Okay. All right. Well, then you guys know what to do. Toolkit.tradeca.co. We'll see you on the inside. We love you. Bye for now.
Adios.
Welcome to TraDeca, a prosperity movement.